This is the second part of our conversation with Madelayne Klein and the Nighttime Podcast's Jordan Bonaparte to speak about the mysterious disappearances of Jack and Lilly Sullivan from Lansdowne Station in Pictou County, Nova Scotia. If you have any information, please contact the RCMP at 1-902-485-4333. And Lance, we will return for final thoughts after the remainder of this interview with Madelayne and Jordan.
Very much looking forward to going back and forth with some final thoughts about this because I know that we both have them. This is a really unique disappearance when it involves two young children like this. So stay tuned for the end of the episode for that. And be sure to follow us on social media at MissingCSM. And we're going to break real quick for commercial, and we'll be back with the second part of our conversation with Jordan and Madelayne.
And the children's stepfather, Daniel Martel, who we just heard in that clip, he has been the face of the family throughout this entire thing. He's appeared on the news regularly, answering questions and seemingly doing whatever they wanted him to do. And he's been keeping the story alive and driving it. But we have had others pop up. His mother, who Madelayne and I mentioned, she lived in like an RV camper kind of thing in the backyard. It turns out she was one of the last people to see/hear the children that morning. Daniel Martel and the children's mother were in bed with their baby. As we mentioned, Jack and Lilly seemed to have gone outside and were kind of playing in behind their house. And Daniel's mother's camper kind of abutted the little playground area. So she heard them that morning, and she appeared on the news as well to describe hearing the children and then not hearing them until, an hour or so later, she hears Malaya and Daniel outside yelling for Jack and Lilly. But they also, when she was on the news, handled questions about, like, do you think Daniel did it? Could Daniel have done something? And some of the things she said were pretty interesting. I think the most interesting part to me was simply her explaining why she even appeared to come on the news at all and discuss the case. Her name is Janie McKenzie, and the full interview of her is available on CBC. It's amazing, but listen to this moment from it.
I'm not here to lie. The reason why I wanted you guys to come here and do the interview here is to show you exactly where everything took place. And to show people that this is what happened. All the stuff that people, all the rumors and accusations about us murdering the kids and burying them on the property, this place has been searched thoroughly. The well has been checked, the septic tank. All the barns were searched. My RV was searched 3 times. The trailer was searched. This whole place was searched. If they want to come back and search again, they're more than welcome.
She sounds pretty heated, but I think she probably has a pretty good reason to be.
Definitely. She sounds very fired up. Yeah. And for good reason. I mean, it's got to be so frustrating, to watch everyone else tell your story and it's not even close to being true. And you're going through it. Like, you're directly in it. Your private property is being searched and you're opening it up again. And hey, search it. But it's so frustrating because, like, she probably knows she could say one, like, offhanded thing and that could blow up into something else is going to be used against her. So It's going to be so endlessly frustrating.
Absolutely. But then at the heart of all this, though, how can a 4 and a 6-year-old set of siblings wander off, not be found in the woods? No sign, no sight of them. It seems like the only kind of piece of evidence, and I'm using air quotes, they found during the initial search, like, I think like the day they started searching, they found like a blanket in the woods behind the children's home that was said to be Lily's. But the details surrounding this blanket have not gone anywhere. And I guess there's more than one reason a blanket of your kid would be in the woods behind your house. But it seems like that blanket has kind of motivated and driven additional searching in the woods behind the home. But this woods, to just describe it, is we had some serious hurricanes and windstorms in Nova Scotia. This was already a thick forest, but the hurricanes and the windstorms knocked down a lot of trees. So this isn't the kind of, this like open meadow that you're running through, chasing a rabbit and picking blueberries in. This is like thick woods that you would be climbing through. And a 4 and a 6-year-old, they're not getting more than, if they got 1,000, if they got a half a kilometer, I'd be surprised. A half a mile, let's say, for the Americans.
Oh, thank you. But also on that same, train of thought, if one of them gets in trouble, what are the odds that both of them are getting in trouble if they're like really pressing their way into the forest and one of them twists their ankle?
The other one goes back for help.
Yep, exactly. The other one starts yelling for help or goes back for help or something, or tries to help the sibling. And I mean, do you actually see the same fate happening accidentally to both?
That's what I think of. Say like one child, say it's a 4-year-old, he wanders off into the woods. Maybe he falls in a sinkhole or an old well or a body of water or maybe a crevice between a rock on a hillside or something like that. I can understand how one person goes missing and maybe isn't found for years later or never. Or maybe they're attacked by an animal, who knows. But for it to happen to two of them, the likelihood, the possibility of any of those things I just mentioned is like astronomically less likely.
Even if something like that did happen, there would be evidence. Like they would have found something.
Footprints. One of the children's backpacks are missing. The backpack could be there, something.
Yeah. Well, and they already got dogs out. They didn't pick up any sort of scent. It hadn't been that long that like rain could have washed it away or whatever. I'm not really sure how the dogs work, but that's one of the most boggling aspects of this case is these kids seemingly just vanished. There's nothing.
I should also say, thought that both children were thought to be wearing rain boots as well. And that's just another thing. Like the kid may go missing, but the rain boots, this rubber boot's going to be laying there and it'll stand out like a sore thumb.
What kind of animals are in those woods? Grizzly bears?
No, we don't have grizzly bears in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, like wild boars?
No, we'd have like, coyotes. But it's not the kind, nothing that is going to take two kids and get rid of all sign or sight of them. That's not something in Nova Scotia. It's so rare that you would hear of someone being injured, let alone dying from an animal attack. And I don't remember ever hearing a story in Nova Scotia where someone was, killed by an animal and the animal took them away and everything else. Like, I don't think that happens here. We don't have grizzly bears or there's no tigers or lions in Nova Scotia.
They have black bears, like we have black bears in Saskatchewan, and black bears are like large squirrels. Like they're more scared of you than you are of them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a conversation that is so like exhausting, right? I mean, to have to like figure out every other thing that needs to be checked off the list of the possibilities. So, I mean, you guys covering this as responsibly as you do, you must be pulling your hair out sometimes, just, fielding all of these theories.
Well, it's such a mystery. And I see like why so many people are invested in it. Of course, when a child goes missing, it takes priority above everything else. When it's two children going missing, that's even a bigger priority. And then when you have no explanation that makes any sense whatsoever, it gets people talking. People want to help because they want to protect children. And then in wanting to help, of course, the conversation goes from there. And next thing you know, you're just so deep in this rabbit hole. And it's to try to wade through all of the information and misinformation out there. It just becomes like I can see how this case can become someone's life. And there are people who have found that the case, that are that invested in it. Both members of the public, people across the province, across the country, and even beyond that.
Real quick, was the backpack still missing?
Yeah. Nothing related to the children's clothing was found. No foot. The only thing found was what was said to be a blanket, and there's some mystery surrounding where and how it was exactly found. And there was also what was thought to be possibly a child's boot print in the woods behind the home, but it's never been confirmed to even be a foot or boot print. It was like a disturbance in the ground they thought could be consistent with a child's boot print. But in my mind, still, I don't see any situation where the kids went up into the woods. They would have left a trail behind them, be it footprints, a backpack, whatever. And also, why would they even go up there? Because the woods is so thick and uncomfortable. Why wouldn't you just hang out in the backyard at the swing set? And if you went into the woods, just go like a minute into the woods, not 3 hours into the woods where a search and rescue team will never find you.
There is water around, I think, but like, of course, all of those bodies of water have been thoroughly searched and dragged. And it's just crazy that, but yeah, there are no answers. But I also like, and I've said this earlier in our discussion, Jordan and I's discussion weeks ago, I always forget how unforgiving the elements are, and just how like the woods in Nova Scotia are very different than the woods here. There are bogs and sinkholes, which I had never heard of these things before. And I hate to compare to other cases, but about 3 or 4 years ago, there was a young boy missing in Saskatchewan, up north a little bit. And the same thing happened, just sort of vanished from his house. And there were massive searches, air searches, infrared, ground searches, et cetera, et cetera. And like 80 some days later, his body was found in a body of water that had already been searched. And it's like I always forget how unforgiving water is, or just really anything that involves the elements. But like Jordan said, 1 kid, fine. 2, and no evidence left behind. It's very unlikely.
Yeah, much less likely. Now, was there ever an explanation given for why the blanket was there?
No, never an explanation. It's been something that's been brought up, that it was found by searchers early on, ground searchers. It was identified by the children's parents, mother and stepfather, to be related to Lilly. And I think there was some kind of testing done on it to confirm that as well. But I don't believe the results of that test have ever come out. But in my mind, it's just like the blanket would be interesting, but I don't see how it would be a game changer, because the kids, lived. I don't know exactly how far from the children's home the blanket was found either. But if it was just, if it wasn't too far behind the children's home, there could be an explanation why it was up there. But it is interesting.
That's how I feel about the boot print. Like, the kids played in the woods and around the property, so this boot print is supposed to be there.
Right. Yeah, I wonder if the blanket being out there as far or wherever it was weird to the mom and stepfather, because I don't know, could it have been someone else using that blanket out there? Maybe watching the family or something like that.
It's a good question. It's one of the many mysteries in the story. And it's, and there's many of them. And it's like, that's kind of, we've used this analogy for many cases, but it's like a puzzle where you just have a couple pieces, but not nearly enough to see a picture of what's actually happening. And I think, like, when you look at the puzzle pieces that are on the table in this case, I can't even imagine a way they fit together that makes any sense.
When you had mentioned that they had dogs out there and the dogs didn't find anything, did they have cadaver dogs or were they scent dogs?
That's a good question. Madelayne, you can handle it, Madelayne, but I'll save you the effort. That's been in the initial search, they had just scent dogs, just searching. They have said early on, they being the police, that they didn't bring in cadaver dogs yet. And they have never told the public that they did bring in cadaver dogs. So people following the case have often said, like, when or why haven't you brought cadaver dogs here? Maybe they have and they just weren't public about it, but I don't know of any cadaver dogs searching the area, which
okay.
To me, it seems like an obvious step to take. I don't know why they wouldn't. That said, the searching done around that home was so intensive and thorough that I would be surprised if anyone found anything that hasn't already been found. But that said, send some cadaver dogs out there if you haven't.
Yeah, I think that's pretty telling, because the information that you had stating that they had dogs that didn't find anything, that was specifically regarding scent dogs, because you don't know if they had cadaver dogs. So that's scent dogs. So they lost the scent of Lilly and Jack, or like what happened there and how far away did they lose the scent, because that's really telling. Because you can tell, like, okay, it ended so abruptly, both of them are gone, and it's by the street, so someone probably picked them up in a car, you know?
Well, that's the thing. The scent stopped at the end of the driveway, allegedly.
Yeah, that's hasn't been confirmed, but the widely accepted by the public version of what happened during that search with the dog initially is that the dogs didn't go into the woods. The dogs walked down the driveway to about the point of the driveway where the children would have been waiting for the bus, on school days. So I've kind of put like a asterisk at the end of that because it could have been, the dog could have been just following the scent from
what they've done before.
Yeah, what they've done before. They would have walked to the edge of the driveway and hopped on the bus. But according to what's out there, but this hasn't come from the police, is that the search dogs walked a trail down the driveway and just stood kind of by the roadside, like, huh?
Okay, so they didn't go into the woods.
No.
So the police must have just changed their focus of the investigation after they realized or figured that the kids just weren't out there. And then they changed their focus to probably abduction, it sounds like.
To me, that's the only thing that really makes sense. And, when you think of all of the things, if, the parents, like the mother and stepfather, they've split up, they haven't been in touch. It's a very public thing that's done, and they don't even communicate anymore. And there's questions now about like access to the baby they have together and stuff. If one or the other did something horrible to Jack and Lily, they wouldn't have been able to do it without the other one noticing, because they're laying in bed together. Jack and Lily are alive. An hour later, they're still in bed together, and Jack and Lily have disappeared. So if one or the other did it, they had to both have been in on it together. And I don't know why you would cover up the murder of kids for your like ex that you're in this legal battle or custody battle, this impending custody battle with. So that's a big question mark. I don't think either of those, I don't think either of them could be involved in it. If a stranger did it, that's the only thing that would make sense. Either a stranger or some other family member that, it came and made something happen. But at the same time, how could you time it that, you show up to abduct the children the morning, the same time that they're, outside without the parents or or Daniel's mom in the yard or something? It would need to be this kind of miracle of coincidence, a tragic miracle of coincidence for someone to be able to get there, get the two kids quietly in a vehicle or whatever, and get out of there without being seen. And if that is what happened, the police should have enough video given to them from, the days prior and the day of that vehicle with the two kids should have popped up on somewhere. And if we're now talking about this case 3 months later without an arrest or a significant announcement, it would tell me that they don't have much.
Well, and nobody involved directly in this case is a criminal mastermind. Like, I'm not saying that to be mean, but like these people aren't running like some huge crime ring and getting away with it. Someone would have given someone else up by now.
Yeah, that's one thing that comes across in all of the interviews is these seem to be like simple people that seem to be saying as much as they can without disturbing an investigation. Like we heard that clip of Daniel kind of choosing his words pretty carefully about that appearance, the sighting of the children the day prior. Aside from that, like when I see him on the news or any of the other people close to the case on the news answering questions, they don't strike me as this, organized, deceptive, hyper-focused kind of people. It just seems like your regular people you'd find in rural Nova Scotia.
All right, we're going to take a quick break for commercial. And just a reminder, folks, that we will return at the end of this conversation with some final thoughts.
Thanks to our sponsors, and now we're back to the program.
It is so baffling. And one thing that we kind of talk about when we have these cases that start to get colder and colder is whether or not it'll be solved with a certain process. Like, is this going to get solved through DNA, or is this going to get solved through public information? And it doesn't sound like DNA is on the table for this because there's nothing to take it from.
Yeah, and if it was going to be something for public information, a case doesn't get much more high profile than
Exactly.
this. So, yeah, but there has been other investigative means and measures we know about. There were several like search and seizure warrants. It's been said that many people close to the kids have had their phones and their home routers kind of taken by police for like analysis. So that could give an indication of who was in the home or who the people in the home were communicating with. But again, it's just as the days tick on, like it seems to me that a case like this, if it was solvable, it should happen like pretty quick. Like, because there's not that many people. Let's say you have your kids at a playground in downtown Chicago, and you turn your back and you turn around and the kid's gone. There's so many people in downtown Chicago coming and going, and so many ways they could have left and everything else. It could be a bit more of a mystery. But in this case, in the middle of nowhere, these kids who don't have like this large circle of people around them, if it was easy to solve, or if it was this obvious thing, I feel like it wouldn't take more than 15 or 20 interviews to get to the bottom of what happened. And that's clearly not the case in this story.
So what I find really interesting about the cell phone and laptop and router seizures is, Jordan, you explained when it first happened that like a judge needs to sign off on a warrant for that, and they need to have like probable cause that there is some sort of evidence on these devices. Like they need a reason. They don't just take cell phones willy-nilly. And so that was really interesting to me. So that just leads me to believe that I think lots is going on behind the scenes. And I've said it before, the public is not entitled to know everything that the police knows as they find it out. So like, I'm hoping that things are turning behind the scenes, and just one day we're going to get this huge breakthrough, and it'll be hopefully solved.
Yeah. How do you think that breakthrough is going to come? Is it going to be someone saw something, or I hate saying it, but is it going to be like a body is found or a bone is found?
For me, when, the cases that I follow, when there's a significant update or development or arrest or solution, it's always a shock and a surprise that comes out of nowhere. So the way I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but the way I see this happening is I just open my phone and scroll through the news and see like, breaking arrest or develop, some discovery in the case. I think it's going to come out of nowhere. And the reason I say that is not just because obviously I'm not going to have inside information that allows me to see it coming, but I just know that it's being taken incredibly seriously by the Nova Scotia RCMP, by the RCMP across Canada. It's a high profile case. They don't want to have egg on their face by fumbling it and they're messing this up. So even if they have a good idea of who's involved or what happened to these kids, they're going to cross their T's and dot their I's. So they have a slam dunk case when whatever goes to court, if it does, when it actually arrives there. I think, I think just out of nowhere, if they get there, it's just going to happen and it'll be out there. As far as what the solution is or what the answer is or what happened to Jack and Lily, of course, the best outcome would be anyone that sees them still be alive, maybe an abduction and someone's holding them or something of that nature. I'm sure they didn't wander off and are roaming around in the woods like feral children for the last 3 months. I guess the best outcome is anyone that sees them come back in one piece. But 3 months later, it's really hard to imagine that being the case.
I think this is a really good case for a Mr. Big Sting operation, and maybe that's how they'll come to a conclusion. But again, all that goes on behind the scenes and could take time as well. So, do
Tim and Lance even know what a Mr. Big Sting is? Is that I think that's
is that a Canadian thing?
It's a Canadian thing, but we're aware.
Oh.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah, we're very aware. Long time ago, we learned about that from a very strange person. Is there anything else? Is there anything else that you guys want to say here today in this conversation?
Only thing I'd say is just be cautious of what you share online. It only takes a second to share good information, and it takes just as long to share bad information. And both things will stretch their way across the internet at the same speed. And sometimes the thing with the crazy headline that looks game changing should be ignored. And if with online nonsense and clickbait, if you ignore it, it actually will go away.
That's, pretty much. Media literacy is, I think, at an all-time low, and it's very important. Don't believe everything you read. Don't spread misinformation. Fact checking is okay.
Yeah, I wish you could normalize, like when someone says something in a comment, like the children did this on Wednesday. Those people need to then say, and I know that because here is the link from an official source, or some kind of justification, or Lance, some kind of corroboration of why they know this.
Done.
To just take a comment someone says in a Facebook post at face value. It's just such an awful thing to do. And media literacy will make the world a little bit easier of a place to be.
Yeah, I love what you're saying there about just putting a comment out and just wishing that there would be some backup to it. We get that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, pretty much every missing person that we talk about, someone will say, well, it's obvious someone did, like, no, this is what happened. And we'll say, well, where did you get that information from? Or they tell like a longer story and there's a bunch of details in there. And I'm specifically thinking of one person who I'm not going to mention, but when asked, they'll be like, well, I mean, you do the math.
Yeah.
Put it together, guys.
You know what I call
it? It's like, no, there's no together yet. Like, that's what you need to tell the story.
Yeah. I call it the my truth tips. And that's like someone says something, this happened and that happened, and they say it like fact. And if you ask them, like, do you have like a link or any kind of source for this stuff? They could just say like, no, that's just my truth. That's what I believe. And you're like, oh, you're just spouting nonsense and we're reading it on you. Shame on us.
We recently had another Canadian on who had probably the best quote about true crime ever.
Who is this?
Michael Arnfield came on, and he had this wonderful description of how true crime sort of started becoming part of our, in our world, in our lexicon or whatever, and how back in the day there were these books that were written that were called fact crime. So not true crime, but fact crime. And over the course of time, these books got more popular. The genre became true crime. And he buttoned up his story by saying, just keep in mind or ask yourself when you hear these stories, whose truth does true crime convey? And I was just knocked over when he said that, because it's so true. Mm-hmm. You can literally put anything out there in regards to Jack and Lily, Brianna Madelayne, Maura Murray, any one of them, and you can say, I mean, it's obvious. And what you were saying, Jordan, like that, like my truth, your truth, so whose truth is it?
Well, the facts are the truth, though. So what you guys are doing in this is definitely the way to go. But yes, you are correct. There is plenty of room for interpretation in so much of this.
Well, and just like I know for my own mental health, and I should take my own advice, but like stay out of comment sections because they are cesspools. If I see one more comment on a recent video or update that's like, ask the mother, the parents know, like, you don't think that they haven't talked to them? Can you let's put our thinking caps on?
Yeah,
they should.
Yeah, or they should search the trailer.
Oh.
Like the police are going to read that and be like, oh my
brilliant.
Trailer.
Why didn't we think of that? Yeah.
Like, and I love that ask the mother line. We see that a lot too. Like, oh, ask the mother. It's like,
what brilliant. Tell the police. They didn't think of that.
You know the mother? Like how you know something? Like she confide in you? Do you have a recording?
It's the confidence in their wrongness. Yes. Is that like people are just so confidently wrong, and it pisses me off.
All right, Lance, we are back here for final thoughts after the conversation with Madelayne and Jordan of the Nighttime podcast. Those two make a good team covering these disappearances. They also work on the Encounters with Creeps series for the Nighttime podcast. So, yeah, they make a good duo.
They really do. I think it's so cool to see two. I think I said this before, but I just want to reiterate it. I think it's so cool to see two very respectable, responsible true crime content creators coming together to try to cover a story like this. This is a difficult story to cover, to properly tell the details without interjecting with your own opinions. And that's not something that they regularly do. They'll provide us with the details. I love that Jordan has all of the sound bites ready to go because he's letting the facts that are out there kind of direct the conversation. And that is a really good method. You know, it provides us with a good roadmap as to what we're going to talk about next, because we're not talking about something that's speculative. We're talking about something someone very close to the situation is commenting on publicly. So good tactic there.
It is, yeah. And, they're not committing to any theories or anything like that because, if they're following the facts, there is no particular direction to really go on for sure. You can't really commit to anything at this point. It's still a wide open investigation, but we're still going to throw around some ideas here, Lance, in final thoughts. Some of the more interesting moments in the conversation, I think, came from what the RCMP were searching for in the video footage that they were asking for. It sounded like the family almost like in town before the kids went missing. So we kind of spoke about what could they be looking for. We sort of, I guess we speculated a little bit like what the possibilities are, right? Are they looking for signs of abuse? Are they looking for someone in the background? Are they looking for weird people following them or something like that? Or, I think they probably don't know exactly what they're looking for, so they're casting a very wide net. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly. That was a great moment when we were talking about that, and always healthy to let your brain kind of explore these scenarios because you never know what might strike a chord with somebody out there. And I think you're right. I think we threw around some scenarios and some possibilities as to what specifically they're looking for, but that thought experiment right there, that brainstorming session, is exactly the point. Like it led you to just say, I think they're just casting a wide net. They don't know what they're looking for, and that's exactly it. I'm sure that they just want all the footage that they can get so they can scope everything, and just like comb through everything and say, who knows? Like, oh, look, that guy with the hat is here and here and here, and who is this guy? And he's always kind of popping up, anything. They're looking for anything. So I think it's just it's a good investigative method.
Yeah, and that seems to be what Jordan and Madelayne are really doing on their series more than anything, is really like breaking down what they know of the investigation, sort of analyzing the investigation from afar, what we know as far as what's publicly available. To me, what's really interesting here is that they searched the woods. That's natural. That's what you would do. That's what you should do right away. Obviously, search the surrounding areas. It sounded like the RCMP moved on after several days of intensive searching in those woods, but it sounds like they're satisfied that the kids weren't there. So what does that leave us with then? That leaves us with possibly a loved one doing something. Well, it doesn't seem like the parents are that direction right now. And it doesn't seem like the people who also live on the property, what is it, the father's mom, I believe, they're pretty open. It seems like everyone's cooperating. So again, like if it's not some family member like that, it's not the biological father. We heard in this conversation that the police are not looking at him at this point. So what does it leave us with?
I guess it leaves us with abduction being the most likely scenario, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I know that they said the dogs did lose their scent at the end of the driveway, right?
Yeah.
But that was sort of, you can interpret that as, well, that's where the kids walk to pick up the bus anyway, right? So
Yeah, inconclusive, I would say.
Inconclusive, right? But still, what happened? You know, there's no evidence of them being in the woods. There's no evidence of them wandering through town. You know, unless there is something that they're just not sharing. But it does seem like a random abduction, and random abduction of 2 young children is pretty brazen. That's pretty bold.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what I'm thinking they were looking for. Possibly someone stalking the family. Because how could this be completely random? Right? I mean, I suppose it's possible. Someone drives by, sees the kids playing, calls them over, had no idea who they were. I suppose that's possible. But I think it sounds like what the police are looking for is evidence of, I don't know, someone following them or something like that. That was why in the conversation I asked about the blanket being there, and did the parents or anyone have any explanation for why the blanket was there? Like, had the people gone out there or something? Or did they say, like, no, that blanket was in the backyard last I knew, so I don't know why it's out there. You know what I mean? Like, maybe someone was actually watching the family.
Yeah, yeah. All of the details, all of the facts, and all of the things that would have to fall into place for this random abduction to happen are kind of mind-blowing. I mean, they were laying in bed. This is a Friday morning at 10 a.m. They were laying in bed with one of their children while the kids played outside. Like, who is, like, suddenly in the neighborhood, in the vicinity at that time on a Friday, capable of kidnapping children? And, oh, we got 2 right here who just happen to be outside, and because the parents happen to be, you know, taking a lazy morning with their other child in bed. It's not the middle of the night. There's Ring cameras. You know, there's like I know that maybe they didn't have Ring cameras, but if someone is taking a child in 2025 in the middle of the day, in the middle of the morning on a Friday, they're not concerned that there's like other homes that might have a Ring camera security system, or this home does. So yeah, were they being stalked? Is that really what we're talking about here? Like, the person would have had to have known.
I think so.
They were able to do this, like, really incognito.
I think at least the police are investigating that angle, if they're not, you know, sure of it at this point. I don't know, but it does seem like they're looking at that possibility. I could believe the random abduction much easier if it was just one kid, but 2 of them, it's just like, if you're not prepared to kidnap kids and you just drive by and you had this dark inclination at, you know, in the back of your head, like, you're really going to spring a plan into action. I you know, it's hard to put your head into a mind space of someone who would even consider that, but it just seems like it would be very difficult with 2 kids. I don't know.
Unless, this is kind of what I hope happened, because that would mean that the kids are alive and probably doing well. But the fact that the couple gets divorced the next day, or breaks up, the fact that the couple breaks up, because I don't know, are they officially divorced?
No, I don't even know that they were officially married. I'm not sure about that.
Right. So they break up the next day. Like, maybe one scenario is that one side, I'm just going to say hypothetically speaking, his side, his mom, is harboring the kids because she knew through her son that they were going to break up, and she would have put up a fight for the children, for custody of the children. So maybe they wanted to preemptively take the children, and then it just got out of hand. They had to go with this kidnapping thing because they couldn't explain it the other way. But that doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't, because he's not the biological father.
He's not the biological father.
And his mom is on the property, you know, and is very open with the media. So, yeah, but, you know, I think you're barking up the right tree as far as, like, you know, on the outskirts of their lives, is there someone who they would go to if they saw, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like someone they might recognize. But again, why would they leave their... It's also hard to put your head in the mind of 4 and 6-year-olds. playing in the yard at this point. So it's hard to say, well, why would they get into a car when their parents are inside, I don't know. It's such a mystery.
And I mean, who would that person be that police aren't looking at, or maybe police are looking at this specific person and they just can't justify or reason an interview with this person or something.
I mean, it's a pretty small community.
Who would it be that we're not talking about already?
I mean, it could be like, people who know the kids from school, or events in town or something. But again, it does seem like a pretty small like area and everything. You just think that these things wouldn't happen in areas like that. And the backpack is still missing. So one of the kids took a backpack with them. So that might indicate that they, thought they were going on some kind of fun adventure or something like that,
Right, and I wonder where that all came from, or how that all happened. Did they have the backpack outside already, or did somebody approach them and say, we're going to be doing this, and, they ran inside and packed this backpack because they thought that they were going away for a couple of hours? And
it doesn't sound like that's what happened, yeah. And
I mean, if they go inside, the person who's abducting them will be gone in a second, because what if they talk to the parents,
Which they probably would have if they were planning to leave the property, I would think. So it probably was just a play thing with the backpack, but I guess they just had it. But and it's kind of hard to say for sure because the parents reported that the backpack was also missing. So I think we're just kind of assuming that it's with them, but it likely is, I guess.
Yeah, we don't know what's in the backpack. It could be like stuff to play with outside. God, I hate these.
Yeah, I know. Well, if you've got any information, please call the Pictou County RCMP at 1-902-485-4333. So maybe we'll be back with Jordan and Madelayne at some point in the future for another update in this case. Hopefully there's something good, Lance.
Yeah. Really looking forward to having them come back on. And like you said, this update that we need right now for this is that the kids have been found and they're safe. So would love to welcome them back on for that piece of news.